Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field inform, educate and inspire the community to live the lifestyle they love. Our first guest today is holistic grief counsellor Gemma Kyriakou, and we're going to be talking about how to manage the grief and loss of a parent. Welcome to the program, Gemma.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
Everyone has a different approach to grief. How can we help people in this journey?
The grief is a natural human response to the passing of a loved one. The death of a parent is probably one of the most significant losses that you will encounter. We lose our safety net when a parent dies, or both parents. And safety is a primal, basic human need. And when we lose that safety, it's often replaced with a fear, which is often anxiety, that comes out as anxiety. So everyone manages and copes differently with grief. It looks very different to each person. Some people become withdrawn, some people very expressive, a lot of anger, and everything is validated. Everything that you feel, every emotion is important to express and feel in order to process. I would always suggest when a parent passes to reach out and speak to a trusted friend or your siblings, to keep the lines of communication open so there are no misunderstandings or grievances.
You say that everyone approaches grief differently. Does that extend to different family members? And if so, what are the consequences?
The consequences of a parent passing, especially when both parents have passed, as if there are, for example, minors and there are small children now left without their parents. This adds such another layer of emotional, extreme stress for the people that are left behind. In my instance, when my mother passed away when I was 20, my sister was only 7, and her dad really wasn't in the picture at that time. So I was left with not a great support system, and having to navigate all the legal complexities and go through the correct channels in what was going to happen to, my sister that was only 7 years old, which added an extreme amount of pressure to myself that was only 20 years old and really didn't know how to navigate that. So this is why I do the work I do now today, is to help people process their emotions, help navigate them through difficult times and help them on their journey.
Can grief be shown in physical and emotional symptoms?
Yes, absolutely they can. You hold a lot of tension when you're grieving. That's a natural response. So that might result in headaches and migraines, especially if you're predisposed. Being tense in the back area, which will result in soreness, muscle tension, which is often a sign of not feeling supported in that time of your life. Grief is very much held in the lungs, so that will come across with shortness of breath. That will show up as anxiety, that will show up as a panic attack, for example, when it's really just a stored, an intense stored emotion that needs to be released and it's trying to come out. With the anxiety, this is a very common symptom of the passing of a loved one because of such of the unknown of what is now going to come into your life. And if we don't keep on top of the anxiety, then we can start coming into depression. So it's very important to start recognizing what you're feeling and to reach out to people to keep those lines of communication open so we don't spiral and we don't go into a depression. So depression, it's a very common side effect of the passing of a loved one, especially a parent. There's so much unknown. So with depression, it may show up as self-isolation. It will show up as intrusive thoughts, lack of motivation, really just wanting to hide away, and just a lack of interest in life in general, which it can be quite normal in a short term, but if this prolongs, this is when we need to seek out professional help and guidance. There can be cultural expectations and cultural consequences with the passing of a parent. Many cultures, religions require things to be done systematically, and now the siblings that are left behind may not necessarily agree with that. Also, with cultural expectations, it's not the done thing to be expressive or talk about how you're feeling. I think what is most important here is to acknowledge the person that has passed and recognise exactly what they would have wanted, and we have to leave our ego and our own personal beliefs at the door and recognise the person that's passed, what they would have wanted for themselves in this moment. Again, very important to recognise those feelings and recognise those emotions and seek advice and guidance from, a trusted friend or a professional.
Talking about advice, what advice would you give to people dealing with grief?
My advice for anyone dealing with grief is to, one, be kind to yourself. It really is a time where you need to allow yourself a lot of grace, recognise and feel into the emotions and the feelings that you are feeling in your body. We want to stop these feelings from being trapped and stored, because they can manifest. We want to help release them for our overall mental and physical well-being. So absolutely consult a friend. It really is about keeping the lines of communication open, because we can self-isolate. We can just hide away. And that might be good in the short term, but long term it's detrimental to our overall health and well-being. And of course, seeking out a counsellor that specialises in this niche and someone that can understand exactly what you're feeling and help guide you through processing and navigating all the feelings and emotions that you are experiencing. There are also free support lines out there for you to call on demand, for example, Lifeline.
Thanks, Gemma. That's been really informative.
Thank you, Melissa.
If you'd like to know more about how to manage the grief and loss of a parent and Gemma, go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. After the break, we'll have another guest with an interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, trauma therapist and author Melissa Hiemann will be talking about how trauma affects our finances and our relationship with money. Welcome back. Our second guest, Melissa Hiemann, is a trauma therapist and author, and the topic we'll be discussing today is how trauma affects our finances and relationship with money. Welcome, Melissa.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Melissa, how does early trauma affect our relationships with money?
Yeah, so I guess before I go into that, I'll explain about what trauma is. So trauma can be any stressful or very emotional response that we have growing up, and those strong emotions embed in our nervous system, in our body, a strong belief about ourselves and the world. So for example, with money, if we grew up in a family where our parents and our family was always saying, oh, our rich uncle, he's so evil, he's so bad, he doesn't share his money, I might grow up thinking, well, if you have money, you're a bad person. And so in that particular case, I will make sure I don't have lots of money because unconsciously I don't want to be a bad person. Another belief could be that, so say I grew up in poverty and we didn't have much money, we were always scraping by. That will normalize to me. I will believe that is what it's like to be in a family, to live, that you're always stressing about money, fighting about money and never having enough. And so we can take that generational trauma with us into adulthood and just recreate those beliefs.
Melissa, how does money management affect our relationships with other people?
Firstly, we have a relationship with money ourselves, And so when we relate with money, maybe we might be anxious, maybe we might want to hold on to money, maybe we want to get rid of it all, and we don't know why. And how this can affect us in relationships if we both have conflicting conditioning or trauma from growing up on how to manage money, then it's going to get really frustrating. And there's high rates of divorce because of financial issues. So for example, if there's a relationship where a husband and wife, they both manage money very differently, there might be a lot of conflict in the house around it. And so for example, one partner always wants to go buy designer clothes and outfits and get rid of all their money, and the other partner always wants to save and make sure that they have enough to eat, roof overhead. And so if the partners are fighting around that, two things will happen. They might lose their relationship with each other, or they're just a high conflict. It's not very nice. And also the kids might be watching that, and the kids are watching that relationship and thinking, wow, money causes a lot of fights. When I get into a relationship when I'm older, we're just not going to talk about money, you know, or we don't want to, like, I don't want to have money because it causes fights, and that continually gets passed down. The other thing can be in terms of our own relationship with money. It's like, do we trust that more money is going to come in, or do we hold on to it? Because some people have trauma around money has been stolen from them, and because of that they constantly get rid of all their money in their account, because they have this trauma, they have this fear, and then someone else might have, you know, grown up with poverty, and they like come to, say, Australia, and they have all these opportunities and they start making money, but they keep all the money and they don't even look after themselves properly because they want to hoard all of the money. They don't trust that more is going to come. It can be very triggering when you're in a relationship with someone that has different conditioning and traumas and emotions around money. It can cause a lot of arguments and fights. So some specific examples of money mismanagement might be someone that is gambling. So what can happen is that maybe when they first gambled, they got a very strong positive response, positive chemicals like dopamine. They're like, oh, this feels amazing. And then what happens is, even though they start getting rid of their money, their brain has this very strong file, this very strong memory, that this gives you a very positive experience and you get lots of money out of it. And that's why these people will keep gambling until they might lose their family, their house, their relationships, because they're chasing that initial dopamine release. And the same can be with just spending in general. Like, women like to go shopping and spending. I think it's quite natural. I think it comes from the hunter-gatherer days where we were gatherers. Kind of want to go out and gather still. And so basically what happens is we might spend a lot of money, look at our account, feel shame about that money mismanagement, and this can go on for years and years. Maybe it started happening in our early 20s when we first started making money. And so then what happens is, when we see that, as soon as we get a bit of money, we want that dopamine release again. We don't want to feel that shame and that guilt. And so it's self-perpetuating. The way that we deal with that shame and that guilt of we've mismanaged our money again is we actually go and do the exact thing that's causing it and go shopping to try and feel better. So these specific issues, when you bring them into a relationship, you can imagine for a person that doesn't understand why they're having those trauma responses and why they're doing certain things, even though it's sabotaging their life, it's going to be very hard when their partner is like, why are you doing that? And it's conflicting with the family goals or having their basic needs met.
Melissa, what advice do you have for our viewers that might be experiencing money management problems due to trauma?
So firstly, you can get an indication of maybe your relationship with money, your personal relationship, and we speak about it in terms of attachment. So do you have an anxious attachment with money? Are you always checking your account to make sure the money's in there? Or do you have an avoidant attachment with money? Maybe you hate checking your bank account, you avoid it at all costs, you avoid looking at your money or having any financial education. And there can be so many grey areas in between there. Maybe you love money more than anyone else, you know, and you just do bad things to try and get as much money as you can because of trauma. You feel some kind of deficit, that you aren't worthy. without money. So when you get those indications and clues as to, yeah, maybe I do mismanage money, maybe I have some shame, if you can work through that shame and you can maybe reach out to a financial counsellor, which are actually free in Australia, you can start to work through that and maybe start reading about money, because when we don't understand something, then we can be scared of it. You know, if we don't understand how to invest and what that's actually like without the emotions, then we're not going to do that and look after our future selves. So the first step is release the shame and then get education and support around that.
Thanks, Melissa. That's such a hot topic. If you'd like to know more about how trauma affects our finances and relationship with money and Melissa Hiemann, please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we have another interesting guest with another interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, Lifestyle GP Dr. Avi Charlton will be talking about the health benefits of functional breathing. Welcome back. Our last guest today is Lifestyle GP Dr. Avi Charlton, and we will be talking about the health benefits of functional breathing. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me again, Stephanie.
Dr. Avi, what is functional breathing and what are the health benefits of it?
To understand functional breathing, we've got to understand dysfunctional breathing. Dysfunctional breathing means not breathing properly. What happens is if we don't breathe properly, we can get more anxious. We suffer from palpitations. And if we use our mouth to breathe a lot, then we yawn a lot and we feel like we need to take big breaths all the time. We feel like we're not getting enough air. We feel short of breath. What happens when people don't breathe properly is they might not sleep properly as well. Sometimes some people snore and then they use their mouth for breathing rather than the nose for breathing. Then they don't sleep well. They wake up not having enough energy and it becomes a vicious cycle. Then they don't breathe well during the day. They feel like they're short of breath. They feel anxious and they don't have enough energy to perform in the day-to-day activities. There's signs that can tell you that if you're not breathing properly, you might yawn, you might feel short of breath and you feel like you're gasping for air. Sometimes you get palpitations or even reflux.
How can our viewers use breathing to improve their health?
So there's a few little things and then there's a few breathing exercises that we can do. What we can do is we can practice breathing light, breathing slow and breathing deep. So I'll elaborate each tip. Breathing light means we don't take big, huge breaths all the time. And practicing breathing less amplitude breathing, light breathing, what that can do is that can tell your body to hold more carbon dioxide. And there's a little bit of science to it that it actually tells your oxygen to get into your body, the brain, the muscles more. So light breathing improves our carbon dioxide tolerance. Deep breathing means we practice breathing into the diaphragm. What we can do is we can practice getting our hands to feel our rib cage. If we breathe into our rib cage, our ribs will come out and then our belly will go out. As we breathe out, our rib cage will go in and our belly will go in. So we practice deep breathing into our diaphragm as feeling our rib cage go out. So there's breathing light, breathing deep, and breathing slow. So what we can do is we can practice slowing down our breathing. We can do breathing exercises that involve slowing down. If you're new to this, you can do counts, breathing in for 3 and out for 3, breathing exercises. Then if you get better at it, you can breathe in for 4, out for 4, or even in for 5 and building up to as long as you can. as you tolerate on breathing exercises. Then there's breath holding exercises that you can slowly incorporate into your life. There's a technique called box breathing. Box breathing means that you take a breath in for 4 counts, and then hold for 4 counts, and then out for 4 counts, and then hold again for 4 counts. And then if you can do 4 counts, you can increase it to 5 counts or even 6 counts. This technique is used by the Navy SEALs to slow down their anxiety, calm them down, and that can improve their mental health. That helps to improve our breathing and reduce anxiety, improve our well-being as well. Then there's lots of other breath holding exercises that we can practice. Let's say you're going out for a walk, you can do some breath holding. If you're new at it, you can hold, pinching your nose for 10 steps, and then you can release and walk 10 steps. Then you can repeat it again 5 or 6 times, doing breath holding exercises. As you get better, you can increase it to 15 steps or even 20 steps. Then that helps to tell our body that we can hold on to carbon dioxide more. Then your body can learn to tolerate higher carbon dioxides. That actually gets your body, your muscles, and your brain to have more oxygen delivered. That in turn improve your mental health, improve cognition, and you function better. The more we breathe through your nose, the more you breathe through your nose at night when you're sleeping as well. We also talk about using mouth tape to tape your mouth so you don't breathe through your mouth at night, especially for those who don't know if you're breathing through your mouth at night. And some people worry about that they will suffocate if they're breathing through, if they have their mouth taped. There are lots of different mouth tapes. Some of them have a little slit that doesn't cover their mouth, and that might help you to get used to a mouth tape and practice breathing more nose breathing. In turn, that can help with better sleep and better function during the day. With children, what happens if the children breathing through their mouth is they can get facial development problems. If they breathe through their mouth too much, the jaw development isn't quite right, and they can get facial development problems, receding jaws, and they're more likely to need orthodontic treatment, braces. So what parents can do is they can remind their children to breathe through their nose more often, all the time. And even at night, they can mouth tape the kids. They might have to get used to it, and you can get special mouth tapes that has a slit in the middle. And there are exercises called buteyko exercises that their mothers can do games with the children, practice more nose breathing and even breath holding. What I suggest is people can seek help with professionals who are trained in breath work and breathing exercises who talk about how to breathe functionally. So we can get the right guidance to talk about functional breathing, get the right exercises for breath work. In that way, you can get the right advice on how to breathe properly.
Great. I'm going to be checking my breath for the rest of the day.
That's great.
Thank you for that information.
Thank you, Stephanie.
If you would like to know more about functional breathing and Dr. Avi Charlton, please visit her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. That's all we have time for today. Goodbye until next week.
If you'd like to know more about our show, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.